On today's show, there's 3 Utah Mammoth players who, if they have a breakout season, it could cause upheaval in the Mammoth roster.
You are Locked On Mammoth, your daily podcast on the Utah Mammoth, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in once again to Locked On Mammoth. I'm veteran NHL voice Tom Callahan, joined by longtime team analyst Robyn Leaño, and together we bring you Locked On Mammoth 3 days a week now for the summer. A little programming note for you. We're going down from our usual 5 days a week so that both Robyn and I can alternate some time off here as well. Give ourselves a little bit of a breather. So we're going to get into some breakout Mammoth players, the potential for 3 players in particular who could really upset the apple cart of the plans that the Mammoth have in place right now. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Robyn, this is an interesting episode for us, looking at the potential of breakout players. And we're going to look at every level. So don't worry, we're going to go through the prospects and all of that. But there are some players here who, if they have the forecasted, the projected breakout campaigns, could make the Mammoth roster out of training camp and on a team that is already maxed out on its NHL roster spots, could cause some real upheaval with this team.
It's going to be really interesting, Tom, to see where all of this comes out, right? I mean, we talked earlier about where some of these players are and the amount of roster spots that are available, which at this point is very few. Sometimes I think it's like right now, Utah is technically over the amount of roster spots that they can have according to the CBA. So to me, Tom, it really is going to be a battle. And if any of these players that we mentioned really makes a breakout year, all of a sudden they put some serious questions on what Utah has to do for the next for the next season.
I think we've got to start with the defense, right? Because more than anything, last year the defense, let's just call a spade here, sore spot, right? Problems, injuries, breakdowns. The defense was arguably the most disappointing part of last year's squad. Got better as the year went along. Yes, you can't help the injuries, but wildly inconsistent play, Robyn. And right now the blue line is jammed. They have players like Valimaki, DeSimone, Cole who are in there, but then they go out and they get an H. Schmidt and add him to the blue line, which I'm not complaining about that, but that makes it certainly interesting when you've already got Sergachev, Durzi, Marino, Mata as your top 4. Now you got Schmidt, Cole, Valimaki, DeSimone. This is a really, really interesting blue line right now for this Utah Mammoth hockey team, but this does not count a couple of players that you and I have discussed in great detail before. And look, you've been on the Dimitri Simashev train for so long. You've been so excited to see this player come in and make a literal physical impact. And it really sounds like GM Bill Armstrong also has this in mind. Just the way he's been talking about both he and Daniel Boot, we're going to talk about Boot later, over the summer. Robyn, it really sounds like almost like they're in, like they have jobs to lose here. But if Simashev makes the opening night roster, that's going to cause some, maybe, is it movement? Is it a trade? I mean, a breakout season here and a breakout training camp, and all of a sudden there's upheaval.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, I mean, you're right. I have been so high on Dimitri Simashev. I mean, you just take a look at what he's done in the last couple of prospect camps. And we mentioned before, right, you take prospect camps with a grain of salt, but still, you can still understand the level of physicality that Dimitri Simashev is going to bring and the kind of edge that he wants to bring to this team. And with where the defense is set, it's really going to create a huge problems. I know you said Bill Armstrong has all the full intention of bringing these guys in and being and we said and the other guy and Daniel Boot, we will get to that later, as you mentioned. But bringing these guys in and being part of the roster, but it's like, I mean, again, it's no roster spot is guaranteed. Someone else can even come in and swoop a spot, and there's really there really is very little room for error right now for the Utah Mammoth.
And you've also got another guy who I think could cause huge upheaval on the blue line is Maverick Lamoureux, who last year I don't think looked out of place in the NHL. Now, look, they're both young, and you can argue for them to be in the American Hockey League. But, Robyn, here's the interesting thing to me, and that's why I thought the Nate Schmidt signing was kind of curious. You bring in Schmidt and figure out where Schmidt's going to fit in. And Schmidt is, from his media availability, is like, hey, wherever they put me is cool. I'm open-minded. I'm ready for anything. I'm going to come in and help where I can come in and help. And you've got Marino, Mata, Jerzy, Sergachev. Then you've got Cole, who, despite his age, can munch minutes like crazy. You've got to figure out what you're going to do with Juuso Välimäki. I hope he has a better training camp because he's got one more year at $2 million, and he was...
Well, remember, Välimäki's got with his ACL injury until December. So
True.
There's really he can't really do anything there.
Right. And so at some point, so that would be 7 when he returns, which would be maybe Christmas. DeSimone, as we have penciled in for the 7th. Even if you put Välimäki on long-term IR and save that $2 million until the middle of the season, you still have to make a decision when he does return to the lineup. But now you've got 2 other defensemen pushing to move in. You've already got 7, 8 once Välimäki's back. It could be 9 and 10. And it's a logjam. I guess it's a nice problem to have.
It is a nice problem to have. But when we're like, here's the interesting thing, Tom. We're talking about breakout candidates, right? Breakout candidates for the Utah Mammoth. I think the important thing when it comes to talking about these players is it doesn't necessarily have to be a breakout for Utah specifically. Like, that player can be a breakout while a member of, example, the Tucson Roadrunners. I mean, or any more rare case, let's say they all of a sudden, let's say it goes as far deep as, like, let's say they're on the Allen Americans in the ECHL, and all of a sudden they break out there, and now they're on Tucson and actually still making noise there and doing whatever. That's less common, right? But this is the point I'm making, is they'll make a lot of different noise. And I mean, you mentioned 2 defensemen, right, who are going to make a push with how tight things are in Utah. It's what makes it interesting, because I'm glad you mentioned those 2 players, because I feel like they can be unique breakout candidates as Tucson Roadrunners, as a incredible top pair together. We have Maverick Lamoureux, you mentioned, he's at least been around the North American game for long enough, and really showed a pretty bright signs when he got called up in November of last year to the Mammoth, or to the then Utah Hockey Club, but of course to the Utah Mammoth. And then you have Simashev, who's going to be making his first time appearance in the North American game, who will need a little bit of an adjustment, but still will be certainly a sight to see.
Well, let me quickly make my case for why I think he's my most primed defender to have a breakout. Number one, you can't teach size, and at 6'5", 203, only 20 years old. I think he's going to come in and have a major impact because he is a big physical defenseman, can play that way that Bill Armstrong wants to see guys play. I think that's huge. So I like the physical size of the guy, but also he's been playing in the KHL, not in junior hockey, not in college, not even in the American Hockey League. The KHL, you can argue American Hockey League. I mean, the way I've always heard it, and I've talked to players who played over there, they say basically the first 2 lines are NHL caliber lines. After that is a huge fall off. Huge fall off. So, lines 3 and 4, not the best caliber. It goes from like NHL top 6 to ECHL bottom 6. So that's a significant difference. But it's interesting that those players who have talked about it say, yeah, some of the most skilled players are over there. There are Russians who never want to leave home, or European players more comfortable with playing in the KHL. There are drawbacks too, but you're still playing against men. You're playing against top opponents, and you're coming off a Gagarin Cup You won a championship with your teammate, Daniil Boot. I really, really think that experience has primed the pump for Simashev to be my breakout defenseman this year.
And I think I certainly think he's got all the possibility there. You mentioned his size, too. Which is I think part of the reasons why I really want to see in Tucson, even if it's for a brief moment, a Tucson D pairing of Lamoureux with Simashev, because you mentioned Simashev is 6'5", Lamoureux is 6'6". Like, it's like, that is like, imagine being, being in the AHL and going, and then like that's your last line of defense, seeing these two behemoths.
Yeah, that's imposing. That is exactly what that is. You line those guys up on the blue line for the anthem, and the other players are looking at them going, these guys are big. I like it. I think that would be great. I want to talk about some more breakout guys. Robyn, you said that they don't necessarily have to break out in the NHL. When we get to talking about the forwards, I've got a couple of those guys as well for you. And today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Look, we've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale. You're sitting in the queue, and then you lose your spot, and you don't get to see the show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. And, well, that's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, so you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endless scrolling to find the best deal, Game Time's Zone Deals pick the best seats in your preferred section for you. And if you've ever wondered what the seat will actually look like before you buy, what your stage view is going to be like, especially at an outdoor amphitheater, you want to know where all those poles and columns are, the app shows you panoramic seat views, so there are no surprises. And with Game Time, the price you see is the price you pay. There's no hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, and redeem our code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño, it is Locked On Mammoth. Please subscribe. Hit the button right now. Smash the like button. Hit the old thumbs up if you're on the YouTube side. It helps us with the algorithm. Also helps you with the algorithm. Find more great hockey content just like this as well. And we appreciate you being here. Robyn, talking about the breakout Mammoth players, defensively, potential to upset the apple cart, even in the NHL roster. On the forward side of things, I know there's going to be a lot of focus because he's the shiny new object on Desnoyers, right? Like, a lot of people are going to be on the Caleb Desnoyers train. They're going to say, this guy, he's fourth overall, and he said all the right things. It was pretty funny because I was talking to the guys at ESPN 700. They're like, he said he wants to make the team this year. Is that even real? And I'm like, well, yeah, sure it is. He could, but, and he, I hope he does. I do, because that'd be a fantastic story. I'd love to talk about it.
Right.
But there's other guys I think we need to spotlight here first. So I'm going to let you go ahead and lead on with probably the forward or forwards that you're looking at most to have breakout years.
I mean, we already kind of mentioned his name, so might as well bring it up. Daniil Boot, a.k.a. Danny Goals. And the reason why I got that nickname, by the way, is because Boot is actually French for goal. So it works, right? But Daniil Boot, also, coming in alongside his teammate Dimitri Simashev, who we already mentioned. It's going to be interesting, Tom, because we talked about forwards and we talked about how even packed the forwards is. Like, Boot, I think, is going to make a really unique case. I think he's primed for something pretty special for his first break into the North American game here.
Robyn, when you look at, I love to say it because you can't teach size, 6'6", 216. There's a lot to like, right? Mm-hmm. And playing with Locomotive in the KHL the last two seasons, 54 games this past year with 28 points, 55 games the year before with 21 points. So half point a game there at that level. showing promise, has shown constant improvement, and then plays on a championship winning team this year. But what are some of the things that you in particular think, okay, this is why I think a player who has played his entire career in Russia is going to be able to make that jump to North America successful?
I think there's, a couple of different things. What we've talked about the size and just these term is, I think the term that a lot of people like to use is physically imposing, right? They're physical, they're power guys. They really put out there. If you are doing that in the European game, in the KHL, right, where the rink is bigger, where there's more room, you can imagine what you're going to do as a power forward in the North American game when everything feels a lot tighter. It's amazing too, Tom, that we use that much of a difference, because in all reality, it's 15 feet, right? It's 15 feet. We're talking 200 by 100 versus 200 by 85. But it makes so much of a difference.
I have played tournaments on international ice surfaces before. It's a huge difference. 7.5 feet on each wing. Now, look, I was a goalie. It makes a difference in my angles and my positioning in the crease. But the other way it really, I noticed, made a difference was for my defensemen figuring out their gaps and their lanes and all of that. And a lot of times things could be thrown off very easily. So now the reverse of that is taking away that 7.5 feet of space if you're a forward on the wing, where you can kind of dangle and hang out, and you've got time and space in the European game that you just don't have in North America.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because it's a double-edged sword on both sides, right? You can use that to your advantage, especially if you're the more physical player. If you're able to do that on the bigger rink, you can even be more imposing on the smaller rink, because you have that level of speed and you have that mindset. But at the same time, timing could be different. There's a lot of different things. There's still a huge adjustment, no matter what, which way you slice it, right? You talked about the difference between the angles, right? Now you can only imagine if you spent most of your time there and all the angles there, and all of a sudden now you're switching to a place where it's everything is smaller, everything is faster.
There's a definite adjustment. Absolutely a definite adjustment there. But to your point, the bigger physical player, I think, has the advantage in that adjustment, because you're going to run other guys out of room a lot quicker.
Oh yeah. And I think there is a huge reason why Bill Armstrong drafted those two guys, Simashev and Boot, back in 23, because he knew that's the potential that they could bring.
So, Robyn, I want to talk about a couple other players who I think are going to have breakout years, and feel free to go ahead and agree, disagree. We're going to ask everybody in the comments who your breakout people are, but I've got two doozies for you next. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño, Locked On Mammoth. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Hey, tell your friends if you like the show. We appreciate it. The more, the merrier, as we love talking about hockey, building community here, and just having a good time. And you know what? Hockey is fun. Hockey's for everybody. We love it, and that's why we enjoy doing the show so much. So, Robyn, this one's going to be a little weird, although not a stretch, but just a little weird. One of my breakout people for this year is Tij Iginla. I think Tij Iginla, number one, injury-shortened season last year, hasn't really done much, and even in dev camp was held out of the 3-on-3 tournament, the scrimmage at the end, did go through some of the drills, but I think when you miss half a season of hockey in which you were really supposed to be in junior and show everybody that you could dominate, and then it just really kind of gets taken away from you, now, I think the onus is on Iginla to come back and have an amazing season. But here's the thing, and this is one of the things when you look at the lineage of a player, Jarome Iginla never, ever, ever shied away from a challenge as an NHL player and always face things head on. I expect that the son will be much like the father, and that Tij is going to destroy the Western Hockey League this year, because that's all I can see happening. How else could it be? Iginla will set the Western Hockey League ablaze this year.
Well, first and foremost, I mean, like, there is a reason why Flames fans, beyond just being legacy, we're upset that Utah drafted Tij Iginla, right? Because they know he has that mindset. I mean, everyone. I mean, they're not. Also, he's not too far, right? Tij Iginla plays out of Kelowna, which in central BC, which, again, all that Western Canada. A lot of people followed, like, WHL. It has an incredible fan base, by the way. But you're right. I feel like Tij Iginla is really primed to just dominate for a lot of different reasons. I think one is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this actually might be based on, I got to double check that, the age limits here, and if this is still, if that's how things work and everything. But this might be Tij Iginla's last year in the Canadian Hockey League, right? Because once he gets past 20 years old, you can't go back to the juniors if you are under contract. You are going to you're going to go to the AHL. That's your next year. That's your next, either NHL or AHL or lower, or loaned or wherever. But
I don't see Tij ever in the coast. But this is his 18 into 19-year-old season, so I guess 19 into 20 could play one more year of junior if needed. But last year was supposed to be the year where Iginla learned to play center, learn more two-way responsibility, and spent the full year there. So I really feel like this is the year of explosion for Tij Iginla, which I'm looking forward to.
Tij Iginla turns 19 in a couple of weeks from now, actually in August. This is going to be his 19 to 20 season technically. So
he'll be 19 years old through the whole season then.
Yeah, he'll be 19 years old through the whole season, but he will be 20 before the next season begins. So this is his last year in the Western Hockey League.
Gotcha. Okay, so there you go. And happy early birthday, Tij Iginla. Hope you celebrate by feeling better and feeling ready to go. But so Iginla is one of them. But the other guy, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, because Robyn, you talk about being impressed with the player development camp, and I have to say, Cole Beaudoin was probably one of the most impressive improvements. One of the guys who I think took the biggest steps forward, who looks so much more ready for the pro game, and I think is poised to have a breakout year. You always hear about, okay, guys, go home, hit the gym, put on a little bit of muscle, eat right, take care of yourself, train hard. I think he did that, took it to heart, and really looks incredibly impressive. I cannot wait to see the season that Beaudoin's going to have. I'm not saying he's going to surpass Tij Iginla, but I think we're going to be talking about both of them all year long.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just want to go ahead and check out his size profile. Man, I'm not sure how often Puckpedia updates it, but now being weighed in, so at sized up at 6'2", 209. So he's adding more weight too, and to me, I think a lot of scouts will look at that, right, and it's like, how much are you filling up? Because you need to size, there are undersized players, right? We talk about Clayton Keller, we talk about even Logan Cooley and a few others, right? They are quote unquote undersized players. But if you're getting someone who's bigger, like these scouts and these trainers and prospect and development coaches, whatever, they are telling you is like, you need to size up. That's one of the biggest things they tell people in development. And Cole Beaudoin did that. And significantly improved in the last, from one training camp, one development camp to another. It really shows he is poised to just do something special in this next year.
So I'm pretty excited for that. And the interesting thing is, look, Iginla, again, to remind everybody, it takes a little longer for NHL prospects to really graduate to the NHL level, with very few exceptions. It's not like the basketball side where you draft a guy who's probably in your lineup come the fall. So
right.
I think that Iginla is going to be an exciting one to watch. Beaudoin is going to be an exciting one to watch. But now, Robyn, we're watching it as in the final year of these guys getting ready to turn pro. So next season, 26-27, is when they're going to really start to make their impact. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of learning left to be done. But could either of these guys get NHL games in the beginning of the season? And if they do, that is also going to impact that Mammoth roster.
It really, I mean, that's an interesting thought, Tom. And to me, like one of the things I was thinking of, I was actually thinking this exact thing. Tij Iginla, I feel like still has to deal with his injury. I mean, we'll have to see how he plays in training camp, of course. Maybe that just can really decide things. But when you mentioned Cole Beaudoin, and it's interesting because I'd like to see him really make a push to make an opening night roster spot this season. I'd like to see what he can do. And again, here's what I love about the NHL, and we're going to go more in depth about it in the next couple of weeks or so. But essentially, is he can get named to the opening night roster, but he'll have that 10-game tryout period before the first year of the ELC officially kicks in.
And so the way that works, just to explain what Robyn just said, is you can play him in up to 9 games before you have to make a decision on whether or not that contract does start ticking. So that means you kind of give him a trial run, and it can be anytime. It doesn't have to be in October.
Yeah. It is going to update, by the way, pretty soon. I mean, I'm going to go more into depth of what that means, plus the changes of the agreement between the NHL and the CBA. All of that is going to be happening in the next couple of weeks because it's complicated.
Yeah, no, it is. And they've changed a lot of that. One more guy I want to mention real quick, Robyn, before we get to the end of the list here is Owen Allard. I think clock's ticking. It's year 2 of a 3-year entry-level deal. A little bit older player, now 21 years old, but, 6'2", 187. A guy who I actually thought had a decent summer camp here, but might really have something to prove coming in to fall training camp with the team. So I'll be interested to see how Allard does coming in as well. That's another guy I'm going to keep an eye on. I'm not predicting a breakout, but I am saying the pressure is on to start showing some worth.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting thing when again, like especially when these guys are drafted later, right? The expectations are low, but at the same time, like there still is an expectation that's like, all right, we drafted you, let's see how you are developing. Some don't end up making it to the NHL, and that's a fact of life. And those that follow, those everydayers that have been around this show, dating to the Coyote show long enough, know that exactly how I felt about the Liam Kirk era, right? I was rooting for Liam Kirk so much in the early part of his contract.
What happened, Robyn?
Yeah, he just didn't pan out. He went over the American Hockey League, started off pretty rocky, got injured, and then never really saw the light of day after that, and then just went back to Europe, I think.
Yeah, it just happens for some guys. And especially the European players, they're not afraid to go back home.
And it's unfortunate because he dominated the UK League, which is, again, I mean, it's a very different league, by the way. The UK League is its own thing. Like, no one ever talks about it. But he dominated the UK League.
Yep, it makes you wonder what could have been. That's for sure. So, Robyn, anybody you want to mention in here?
Actually, yeah, it was interesting because I was looking through the non-roster size of Puckpedia, and I was like, who am I missing? And I was like, yo, that's right, I totally forgot about him because I felt like he had high potential, but I don't know if we saw him enough in Tucson. I want to see him be a breakout a lot more in Tucson and really show his worth and get to that point. But Artem Duda, he was another one of those guys that came in from Russia. He was a later draft pick in the a few years ago, but he was also put in there as a physical, European style defenseman. Like, you want to bring, like, that's what Bill Armstrong is trying to do. So let's see Duda do that. I want to see him break out with Tucson this year.
I would love to see that as well. And you know what? The breakouts can happen all the way up and down the chain, but I honestly think whatever happens for the Mammoth. I mean,
they're in an amazing position.
It just shows how stacked they are. How many different guys did we talk about? 6, 7 potential breakout players for the Mammoth. Looks pretty good.
It really does. And it shows a couple of different things. One, Bill Armstrong has been drafting, right? But and two, development coaches and all these people are they're getting the message across what expectations are, and getting to a point where all right, we know where this Utah team is going to be in a few years. We already know they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot and ideally in a playoff spot this upcoming season. And then the years past that, they keep competing, especially if these new guys coming in and just keep restocking once guys get close to retirement age or they're kind of no longer be a part of it because of other reasons or whatever.
And again, didn't want to go for the low-hanging fruit, Robyn, but I think J.J. Peterka and Logan Cooley are poised to jump from 60-something point players. I would not be shocked to see them both over 80.
I mean, if we're talking about that, the top 6 as a whole is going to get a insane spark this next season. An absolutely insane spark.
It's going to be a scary team to play against. The offense is going to be there everywhere, every time you turn around. Just got to keep pucks out of the net. Sounds simple, right?
I mean, what makes it even crazier, and this is the last note, this is one of the last notes I'll put on, is last year. I mean, we talked about how strong they were last year with some inconsistencies, but last year, I'm gonna just go a very slight, dip your toes into into fancy stats. But last year, Utah had a pretty high goals for expected, right? And expected goals for they had that level of high flying offense. Sure, so they didn't score on all those expected goals because maybe just puck luck, right? That's what happens. But they were there, right? They had all and the high amount of expected goals, which tells you something about where this team is going. The expectation is only greater now.
Yes, I agree. It should be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see where they're going to go. Robyn, I know folks are going to agree and or disagree with us. Where can they do that on social media?
You can find us everywhere on social media at Locked On Mammoth. Once again, at Locked On Mammoth. You can send us a DM, do anything over there, and we will, we'll answer any questions you have on over there. But you can also find me personally at Robyn_Leaño.
You can find me on Blue Sky at Tom Talks, at Callahan on air on Twitter. And we appreciate you being here. Let us know, who are your breakout players in the Utah Mammoth organization for 25-26. Thanks for joining us, everybody. As always, this has been Locked On Mammoth.